What's up, guys? I am xExotic, and it is so good to be back here once again for another Dragon Ball Super review. Last time, I finished my review of Dragon Ball Super's Battle of Gods arc. I concluded that, while there were positive changes and aspects in that arc, the majority of the episodes scored pretty low, with the final scoring of that arc being 42 out of 70, or 60%. So yeah, not that good. Of course, there are more story arcs to Dragon Ball Super, which brings us here today, where I will be reviewing the next arc in the series, the Resurrection F arc. Let me give you some backstory. So after the release of the movie Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods, a sequel released in the spring of 2015 titled Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. Just like in the previous arc, Dragon Ball Super based its story on the movie, reformatting the story to fit into a series. The Resurrection F arc is actually pretty short, only consisting of 9 episodes. Even so, this is definitely going to be a long review, so buckle up. I am finally ready to get into Dragon Ball Super's Resurrection F arc. Before I get into the arc itself, I did want to go briefly over some episodes that I will not be covering in this review. The Battle of Gods arc ended at episode 14, and the Resurrection F arc begins at episode 19. Episodes 15, 16, 17, and 18 would technically be classified as filler. Filler is a term used to describe stories or plot points that appear in an anime but are not present in the source material. While there could be multiple reasons why filler exists, in the case of Dragon Ball Super, it is used to fill in the gaps between the 2 story arcs. Remember, these arcs are based off of the movies, so when adapting the movies into a series, the writers need to show the events that happen in between. The 4 filler episodes do exactly that. So, after the Earth was saved from Beerus, his attendant Whis returns to the planet to hang out with Bulma and enjoy Earth's food. Vegeta becomes aware of the fact that Whis is also Beerus' teacher, and so wants to train with Whis. Whis accepts after being won over by a cup of instant ramen. Also, Gohan and Videl's child is born. They have a daughter and her name is Pan. Bulma ends up revealing that Vegeta left to go train with Whis, and this encourages Goku to also want to go. Whis accepts Goku, and they both leave for Beerus' world. Probably the most important filler episode out of that bunch is 18. So, while I won't be doing an in-depth review on the filler, I did want to cover some of the more important aspects of that particular episode. In this episode, we get to see the training Whis is having Goku and Vegeta do. We see them doing normal chores as well as traditional training. I really like seeing Goku and Vegeta interact in a more casual setting. It makes the episodes fun, as well as allowing a more relaxed side of the characters to be shown. Of course, this is followed up with Vegeta doing some extra training because he won't let Kakarot surpass him, yada yada yada, you know the drill. Not to sound like a broken record, but seriously, Vegeta has moved past his rivalry with Goku in the Buu arc. Having Vegeta's character revert back into how he was pre-Buu arc was a huge problem for me in the last arc of Super. I don't like seeing this character trait for Vegeta. It just completely invalidates his character growth throughout Dragon Ball. But something I do like is Goku and Vegeta's new outfits. I understand that their outfits are iconic, but allowing them to change outfits can also reflect growth. Interestingly, throughout Vegeta's story, his outfits reflected his character growth. At the start of the series, Vegeta is wearing a full set of Saiyan armor and a scouter. Next, he wears a variant of that armor without the shoulder and waist pads and no scouter. After, he wears a new variant of Saiyan armor designed by Bulma. And in the Buu saga, he stops wearing the armor entirely and only wears the jumpsuit. And we see that by the end of Dragon Ball, Vegeta wears casual Earth clothes. This is something that's actually pretty cool about Vegeta. As he becomes more human and less Saiyan, he wears less Saiyan outfits. Granted, I highly doubt this was intentional by Toriyama. He writes a story as he goes along and rarely plants seeds for the future. So I'm sure this is just a coincidence, but whether intentional or not, it does accurately reflect Vegeta's character growth. And then Battle of Gods was made and Vegeta goes back to wearing the same outfit he wore in the Cell arc. So I guess Vegeta's character backpedaling is also reflected in his design. Oops. In this episode, Whis explains what the endgame is for our characters. The goal that Goku and Vegeta are trying to achieve is a state where their bodies can just move on their own without them having to think about it. This concept gets brought up again in the Universe Survival arc at the end of the series, where we learn that the state Whis is referring to is called Ultra Instinct. I really love how the show planted a seed so early on in the series and actually followed up on that point. And lastly, we get to see two new characters, Champa and Vados. We learn later in the next arc that they are the god and angel of Universe 6. They get teased here, but won't be utilized until the next arc. Well, with that in mind, let's continue with episode 19, the beginning of the Resurrection F arc. Episode 19 begins by showing us Frieza in Hell. Meanwhile, the remainder of Frieza's army is struggling to maintain their power after Frieza's death. This introduces us to the new characters Sorbet, Togama, and Shisami. Sorbet, now commanding the Frieza force, realizes that they need Frieza to return in order to maintain power, so they plan on going to Earth and using the Dragon Balls to revive him. Next we see Goku and Vegeta train with Whis, where Whis analyzes their characters and points out flaws that hold them back. For Vegeta, Whis points out that his nerves are too tight and he walks through life with a chip on his shoulder. And for Goku, Whis points out that he is too relaxed and overconfident, which allows enemies to get the upper hand on him. The scene transitions to Earth, where Piccolo is babysitting Pan for Gohan and Videl. However, Piccolo senses a bad energy. That bad energy is Sorbet and Togama. The two ambush the Pilaf gang who have been collecting the Dragon Balls. Shenron gets summoned, and Sorbet wishes for Frieza to get resurrected. Unfortunately, since Frieza was cut to pieces by Trunks, he gets brought back in pieces. But that's not a big deal since Togama realizes they can heal him with their technology. So they go ahead and do that. Oh, wait a minute. Oh god, why is he here? This is Captain Ginyu, still stuck as a frog. I have a lot to say about his inclusion, but we'll get there when we get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, the episode ends with Sorbet able to successfully bring Frieza back to life. Okay, so a few things. Although we didn't really get to see much of the new characters, I like Sorbet, Togama, and Shisami. The dynamic is pretty cool, with Sorbet struggling to maintain the Empire, and Togama being really cautious about the decisions they make. Going forward, I hope there's more in store for these characters. Realistically, that probably won't happen, but I just want to be hopeful. I also really like the scene where Piccolo is babysitting Pan. Piccolo is such a serious character, and he started off being evil, but through Gohan he learns to be more kind and compassionate. I like seeing him try to make Pan happy. I thought his actions were extremely fitting for his character, and if you've ever seen Dragon Ball Super, Super Hero, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I just like seeing this change of pace, allowing the characters to show different aspects of their personality. However, like with every episode of Dragon Ball Super, there are problems, so let's go ahead and get into the negatives. Something that kinda bugged me in this episode was the flashback to when Frieza destroyed Planet Vegeta. The scene plays out like normal, the only issue is that there is no Bardock in this scene. Now, things might get a little confusing, so be sure to follow along. You see, during Dragon Ball Z's airing, Toei Animation put out a special where the story revolves around Goku's father, Bardock, and how he tried and failed to stop Frieza destroying his planet. This special was not written by the author of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama. However, Toriyama did reference it in the Dragon Ball manga, where Frieza sees Goku and remembers Bardock. Because of this, I would consider the special a part of the series, and for many years everyone did. That was until Akira Toriyama decided to write his own version of Bardock in a story called Dragon Ball Minus, where in his version, many aspects surrounding the story are drastically different. In Dragon Ball Minus, we don't see Bardock stand against Frieza. What I'm trying to say is that there are two stories about the same character that are drastically different, and to make things even worse, the new story's information conflicts with the original. I personally hate Dragon Ball Minus. I'll probably get to that story eventually, but what I want to say now is that I hate the changes made to the Bardock special, and its impact on the series as a whole. The absence of Bardock in the flashback, to me, is a warning sign. A warning sign that Dragon Ball Super will legitimize Dragon Ball Minus' story instead of letting that garbage get forgotten and die. While I find it funny that Frieza has his own section in Hell, this decision presents a problem. How is it that Frieza still has his body in Hell? In the Buu arc, when Vegeta asks Piccolo if he'd be able to see Goku after he dies, Piccolo tells him that because he killed too many innocent people, his soul won't go to the same place Goku is. Vegeta's soul would be purified, he would receive a new body, and his memories erased. In the past, we have been shown the afterlife and the souls that arrive to be judged. Goku was able to keep his body unlike everyone else so that he could train with King Kai. He looks to be a rare exception to the rule. Later on, when Vegeta does get brought back, it's pointed out that he was able to keep his body because King Yama had decided to keep Vegeta around. And yeah, Vegeta ends up getting used to fight against Buu. So with that in mind, why does Frieza get to keep his body? It just doesn't make any sense how someone as evil as Frieza could keep his body. This is even more confusing because later on when Frieza comes back, again, he reveals that while he isn't able to move around in the cocoon, he was able to mentally train himself. And due to his mental training, he ends up solving the problem with his new transformation burning too much power. Yes, the guy who is supposed to be sent to hell ends up keeping his body and is able to train himself to grow stronger. This is such a weird inconsistency. I also had a huge problem with Whis' assessment of Goku's flaws. While I do think Goku can be too relaxed, I do not see him as being overconfident. Many times in Dragon Ball, Goku has desire to fight stronger opponents. I never got the feeling that Goku was overconfident in his abilities, but rather Goku always wants a fair fight. Goku likes being challenged, even when his opponent is evil and is trying to kill him. That's why he still cared about the tournament even after Piccolo destroyed the arena. He allowed Vegeta to be spared and let Frieza use 100% of his power. That's not Goku being overconfident, that's just Goku wanting a fair fight and a challenge. What Goku's real problem is that he doesn't understand that not everyone thinks the same way he does. Goku fights to challenge himself and doesn't think about the consequences of his actions. And his opponents get the upper hand on Goku because they obviously do not play by his rules. Frieza, Cell, and the majority of the villains for that matter don't care about fighting fair. And that allows them opportunities to beat Goku. Goku not understanding that is also a major conflict in the Cell arc. Goku intentionally gives up against Cell so Gohan can fight him. Goku knows that Gohan has the strength to defeat Cell, but doesn't understand that Gohan isn't excited by the challenge like he would be. So no, I don't agree with his assessment. It's definitely a mischaracterization by Whis and by extension the writers. This next point I want to make actually confused me and is most likely a plot hole. So when Shenron gets summoned, the dragon explains that he can grant 3 wishes and 2 if one of the wishes takes up too much power. Understandably, Sorbet is surprised by the amount of wishes, but somehow Pilaf is also surprised? Alright, it's time for another explanation. So, in the Dragon Ball Z movie, Battle of Gods, it's explained that Pilaf, Mai, and Shu are kids because they wish to be young. When the movie got adapted into a series, the writers removed that explanation, so for those who only watched the series, they are all probably confused as to why these characters are children. Bad writing, I know, but here's the thing. If the Pilaf gang used the Dragon Balls to become young again, wouldn't they already know that Shenron granted 3 wishes? Ugh, damn it, Super, why do you always do this to me? Can't you just not leave plot holes behind? I would really appreciate it. This script is already so long as it is. While I did have some problems with the episode, it didn't kill my enjoyment. Overall, I liked this episode. I thought it was a good introduction to a new arc. And I was definitely a fan of how this episode was framed from the perspective of the villains trying to bring back their former leader. So my score for this episode is 4 out of 5. Let's hope Dragon Ball Super doesn't do anything to ruin this arc, making it one of the worst arcs of Dragon Ball. Okay, moving on, episode 20 of Super. This episode begins with Frieza brought back to life. With his second chance at life, Frieza desires to get his revenge. So Frieza decides to train for 4 months to become stronger. We cut back to Goku and Vegeta's training. During their training, Goku and Vegeta discover a new mysterious power through their clashing fists, a very small hint for later. Back on Earth, we get introduced to a new character, Jocko, the Galactic Patrolman. He came to warn Bulma about Frieza invading Earth and that they only have 1 hour until he and his forces arrive. Unfortunately, Bulma isn't able to get in contact with Whis, so Goku and Vegeta aren't able to show up. Instead, Krillin, Tien, Roshi, Gohan, and Piccolo are the ones to show up to the fight. As they group up, Frieza and his forces arrive on Earth. Alright, probably one of the biggest changes from the Resurrection F movie was that Togama was left alive. In the movie version, Frieza kills Togama after he questions him, but in Super, he doesn't kill him. This was a great decision. To me, Togama was a character that never really got the chance to be fleshed out because, well, he died. But now that he's been spared, his character has a chance to be developed. and I want to see where this character goes. He is a really cautious and uncertain character, so he seems like he could be an interesting villain. Hopefully, Super doesn't ruin his character. The next thing I wanted to bring up was Frieza training for only 4 months and becoming as strong as Goku and Vegeta, who, at this point, have achieved divine energy. I know that this is a huge problem for a lot of fans, and when I first heard that Frieza only trained for 4 months, I was shocked and confused. Honestly, I can't blame fans for having a problem with this. It's been years since the defeat of Frieza, and the characters have come so far with their training. So it seems odd that Frieza can suddenly get so strong within a relatively short time period. The justification is that Frieza never actually trained a day in his life. He was just born with power that almost rivals Super Saiyan Goku. I can totally buy into the idea that if Frieza actually trained, then he would be super powerful. Getting stronger in only 4 months? Well, I'm not too sure about that. It's dumb, yeah I know, but I also don't really have as much of a problem with this. It's just an arbitrary amount of time that was made up. And besides, this short time frame ends up becoming a relevant point later on in this arc. So yeah, not really a big problem for me. Shocking, right? The guy who complains about everything doesn't have a problem with something that many fans did. Well, don't you worry, there's plenty of complaining to come. A cool thing I wanted to bring up was the advice Whis gives Goku and Vegeta. He tells them to not let their energy leak out of them, so as to not weaken their power. Looking back, all these characters have been shown to have energy surrounding their bodies. Apparently this is not a good thing since they actually are losing a lot of energy and not fighting at max potential. I like this concept a lot. The only thing is that I wish it would be better utilized in the anime. From what I can remember, this concept doesn't really go anywhere, even though it's a really smart idea. Now I believe this gets brought up again in the manga, but this isn't a review of that. Again, a cool concept that may or may not go anywhere depending on how you consume Dragon Ball Super content. Continuing on, I was really confused by how Frieza could be revived, trained for 4 months and not get noticed by anyone until he's an hour away from invading Earth. The news was conveyed to Bulma by Jocko the Galactic Patrolman, and Jocko says that the invasion is only an hour away from Earth? Like, how did someone like King Kai or the Supreme Kai not realize that Frieza is back? They should have been able to see what was happening and let someone know. I've come up with 2 explanations why this is. The first one seems pretty obvious, but if King Kai or the Supreme Kai were to alert everyone, they would put a stop to Sorbet's plans to revive Frieza, and therefore we would have no story. Another explanation I thought of was that the writers wanted to include Jocko in the main world of Dragon Ball. If you don't know who Jocko is, he is from the manga Jocko the Galactic Patrolman, also written by Toriyama. Jocko's story takes place in the world of Dragon Ball, but obviously is disconnected from the main plot and characters. But yeah, for me, the writers just wanted to have Jocko in the main Dragon Ball story, and used him as a messenger to get him involved. I like Jocko, but I don't know about this one, Chief. Seems like a weak introduction to me. It's obvious that Jocko was just shoved into the story doing what King Kai or Supreme Kai could have easily done. This is especially frustrating considering the fact that the characters only have 1 measly hour to prepare for an invasion. This is just more proof that the Supreme Kai suck at their job. Speaking of Jocko, there is this weird line where Jocko states that he does not know who Beerus is, and I find this incredibly stupid. So you mean to tell me that Jocko, a member of the Galactic Patrol, a guy who should have at least some knowledge of the universe, does not know about the universe's god of destruction named Beerus? Yet Frieza, who is basically just a space dictator, knows about both Beerus and Majin Buu? Is Jocko just an idiot? I mean, yeah, he is, but come on, really? He doesn't know about the universe's god of destruction? Android 18 not getting involved in the fight was something that I totally forgot about, but the more I think about it, the more annoyed I get. So after Krillin gets called about the invasion, 18 shows up and she gives him his fighting ki and she also shaves his head. 18 says that she should join since she's a lot stronger than Krillin, but Krillin shoots her down and tells her to stay behind with their daughter Marin. And so she does, and for the rest of this arc, 18 doesn't do anything but sit at Krillin's police station and wait with Marin. This actually pisses me off. Keep in mind that Earth is only 1 hour away from being invaded, and Earth's most powerful fighters aren't around to help. The team that does go to fight Frieza is a group of fighters that got put together last minute. So if they're desperate for strong fighters, Android 18 being left behind is a completely stupid decision. Now, I'm no expert in anime power scaling, but I'd say she's probably the third strongest person in the battle, right behind Piccolo and above Krillin by a lot. What I'm about to say might be a little controversial, but is Android 18 not in this fight because she's a woman? This is something that I've noticed before, and I feel like this is a good time to talk about. I have a problem with how Dragon Ball treats its female fighters. After getting married and having children, each of them seem to have been reduced to the role of housewife. Why can't Krillin and 18 just leave Marin with someone else to watch her? It's pretty disappointing seeing Android 18 get this treatment, since her cold personality makes her pretty unique. We also never really got to see her interact with the main cast. She's treated as a side character, which is kinda lame considering her immense strength and potential as a fighter. Remember, she was introduced as being stronger than both Super Saiyan Vegeta and Trunks. But no, she's a wife and a mother, so she's not allowed to get involved. This is just giving me major Dragon Ball GT flashbacks where Pan can't go Super Saiyan because her role in the story is to be the damsel in distress, and also they just couldn't come up with a design for a female Super Saiyan. And another thing that kinda gets under my skin is Goten and Trunks still being little kids. These two characters were introduced during the Buu arc of Dragon Ball, and at the time Goten was 7 and Trunks was 8. After Buu's defeat and Beerus makes his appearance, years should have passed by and Goten and Trunks should have gotten older. Yet they still look and act like children. Which is odd since at this point in the series, Goten and Trunks should be around 12 and 13. We have seen what Trunks looks like as a 14-year-old, and he seems like a normal teenager. But this 13-year-old Trunks still looks like he's 8. This is a weird decision to make. I don't know why the series needed to keep these characters as kids. Gohan also aged normally, so I don't know why Goten and Trunks don't get the same treatment. Who knows, maybe Toei and Toyotaro just don't give a fuck. To be honest with you guys, this episode was alright. I know that I have problems with it, like every episode of Super, but I didn't really get upset, nor did I get excited. It got kinda stale when Jocko showed up and acted like a goofball, but everything else was fine. So my score for this episode is a 3 out of 5. It's an okay episode, nothing too bad, but also nothing too good either. Episode 21 is when the invasion begins, with Krillin, Tien, Roshi, Piccolo, and Gohan fighting against Frieza's army. Despite being outnumbered, everyone is able to hold off the soldiers except for Krillin. He has a hard time getting back his confidence, having to face the guy who killed him before scares him. But once he realizes that he's actually strong and can hold his own, his fighting spirit goes up. Back on Beerus' world, Goku and Vegeta continue their training and get sent by Whis to some unknown dimension. Things are going in Frieza's favor, so Sorbet has Shisami join the battle. He attacks Gohan, getting him into a lock, but in a shocking twist of events, Togama fires a blast right through Shisami's back, hitting both him and Gohan. We learn that because of Togama's training with Frieza, he developed a new outlook on strength. During the training, Frieza would beat Togama to near death, have him be healed, and then train with him the next day. Repeat that for 4 months, and that was Togama's training. This inspired him to want to become a warrior. So he decides to start fighting, and Goten and Trunks notice his energy and head off to the battlefield. And the episode ends with Ginyu the Frog inside Jocko's spaceship. Okay, this is quite an interesting episode, so let's get into it. Something that really pisses me off is why Goten, Trunks, and Buu aren't present on the battlefield. Gohan says that the two boys can be reckless, overconfident, and will most likely go straight for Frieza. I have no idea why bringing Goten and Trunks is such an issue. I mean, for God's sakes, they brought Roshi at all people. I like Roshi, but he's nothing compared to Krillin or Piccolo. And remember, Goten and Trunks were initially trained to defeat Majin Buu. Does Super honestly expect me to believe that a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks is better off at home where it's safe? At this point in the series, other than Buu, Gotenks is Earth's strongest fighter. I think they can handle fighting against Frieza's army and maybe even First Form Frieza too. It sucks because I always felt that Goten and Trunks have been wasted as characters. Like most of the cast, they always take a back seat to Goku and Vegeta and have received no real development. Thanks, Super. Speaking of which, we should probably talk about Buu. Buu is an extremely powerful character with the ability to use magic and pretty much regenerate from any attack. It makes sense not to use Buu from a narrative point of view, since he could easily defeat all of Frieza's army and maybe even Frieza himself, I don't know. But from an in-universe logical perspective, it makes no sense to not have Buu fight. They come up with an excuse that he's asleep and we won't wake up, which is completely ridiculous. This whole falling asleep BS is just to write Boo out of the story. Yes, that's right, the writers are too stupid and don't know how to incorporate Boo into the story, so they literally have Boo be inactive during Earth's invasion. This sucks, and I don't like it at all. And slight spoilers for later arc in the series, but the writers consistently make Boo fall asleep in order for him not to be utilized. Shitty writing at its finest, folks. Using the same excuse over and over to remove a character from a story because no one knows what to do with them. I also want to go off on how Super has handled Gohan. I didn't bring this up earlier in the arc because I wanted to save it for later, but fuck Gohan's redesign. He has this really goofy looking haircut and oddly has glasses. I always felt that the glasses were meant to physically show that Gohan isn't a fighter anymore. He has a job and a family now. But realistically, why does he wear glasses? He's a half human, half superpowered alien. His alien half were warriors that were born for combat. Gohan's senses are probably cracked out. He probably has way better eyesight than the majority of people on Earth. And yes, I have seen Dragon Ball Super Superhero, and in that movie, it's explained that Gohan actually does need glasses to see, and that his eyesight gets improved when he's Super Saiyan? I don't even know anymore. His haircut is stupid, and his glasses are also stupid too. But the worst aspect of Gohan's redesign is the tracksuit. Instead of Gohan wearing the orange and blue gi, or even the purple one, he wears this really ugly green tracksuit. I am really not a fan of this change. I just don't think it looks good at all, and compared to the other outfits we have seen in this series, it just looks so boring. And it's especially ugly seeing Gohan's yellow hair with a green outfit. Yellow and green? Ugh, what were they smoking when they designed this? Unfortunately, this isn't the last time we will see the tracksuits. You probably don't remember this one, but in the previous arc, Goku wore a blue tracksuit, and in this arc, Gohan is wearing a green one. And an extremely tiny spoiler for a later arc, but Android 18 will wear a red one. For Goku, it's not that big of a deal because he only wears it for a short amount of time, but for Gohan and eventually Android 18, they will wear those tracksuits for the entire arc. I don't know what Toriyama or Toei's obsession is with making these characters wear tracksuits. They don't look good, they are boring and generic looking. Clothing is super important to a character's design. They already looked good before, why would they fuck it up and make it worse by doing this? On a positive note, I will say, because of the fact that Goku and Vegeta are not here, it gives the other characters time to shine. Characters like Krillin, Tien have been pushed to the sidelines in favor of Goku, Gohan, and Vegeta. And that's been a big problem for this series for such a long time. They have all these characters, but they barely use them because as the story goes on, they quickly get outclassed or the writers refuse to use them like what they do with Boo. I like seeing them back in action as the main focus of the fight. These characters needed attention, and I'm glad that they're getting it. They've been with us for so long, they deserve it. Like Krillin, for example. He initially gets struck with fear and he can't focus on the battle and is too afraid to move. Of course, in reality, he's actually really strong, and once he realizes it, his spirits get lifted. I kinda like this scene. A part of me wants to shit on Super and complain that Krillin is just being a bitch, and honestly, this part of the episode came across as so melodramatic. But another part of me sees it in a different way. I mean, over the years of fighting, Krillin has dealt with a lot. He's been killed twice, and one of those deaths was by Frieza. And Krillin gets reminded of that once Frieza arrives on Earth. So to see him struggle with the form of PTSD is very real and very human. While the execution of this is a little sloppy, I can appreciate Super's attempt at giving its characters more depth. To touch upon flashbacks, Super is using Dragon Ball Kai footage for flashbacks. To make this quick, the modern Dragon Ball style looks drastically different from how it used to look, so to show the old footage is really out of place for me. It just doesn't look good compared to the new stuff. That, and I feel it's there to also pad the episode's runtime. What is really upsetting, however, is the lack of blood in this series. It has been a standard in Dragon Ball that when a character gets hit or cut, they will start to bleed. Not only is that something in Dragon Ball, but also something normal in life. So you can imagine how disappointed I am seeing Gohan and Shisami with these massive holes in their bodies and no blood spills. None. What is this? No blood? Really? This is probably one of the most disappointing things to happen in Dragon Ball Super. And before any of you try to defend this by saying, "Oh, Exotic, the blood doesn't make a difference, you're just grasping at straws." No! Shut up, you're just wrong. The lack of blood does lessen the impact of scenes like this, where we have a character getting impaled by an attack and there is no blood to reflect the damage they've received. In this case, Gohan is left with a big, dark hole in his chest, and it's really weird that there is no blood. Before, we had characters like Goku and Raditz get huge holes in their chests, just like Gohan. The only difference is that they had visible blood to reflect the damage. Now, I'm not trying to say that Dragon Ball needs to contain more violence, blood, and gore. But what I do want is for the damage a character receives to be reflected through injuries, since it just logically makes sense for that to happen. And look, it could be that industry standards have changed and they just can't show graphic depictions of violence for TV. I get not having blood for the broadcast version of the show, but to not include it in the Blu-ray release is beyond ridiculous. Unfortunately, there would be no blood this time around because, of course there isn't. It's Dragon Ball Super. Things don't make sense. What was good was how Super handled the character of Tagoma. During his introduction, he is shown to be very cautious, constantly wanting to avoid confrontation with the Saiyans on Earth. But after his training with Frieza, he desired to become a warrior, worthy to be in Frieza's empire. And so his character became stone cold and ruthless, even taking out one of the Frieza Force's best fighters in order to kill Gohan. I love this. This is amazing! Tagoma has received actual character development, and this makes perfect sense for a guy like Tagoma. It was pointed out earlier that the Frieza Force had become considerably weaker without Frieza, and Tagoma is a reflection of that weakness. Here's the thing, while it is true that Tagoma's character did a complete 180 going from cautious to relentless, it's totally understandable how he got to that point. Frieza was brought back to strengthen the Force, and he successfully transformed the cautious Tagoma into a ruthless warrior. Hopefully Super doesn't ruin his character or anything like that. Now that would really piss me off. Finally, the last thing I wanted to bring up, and this is probably me just nitpicking, but how did Goten and Trunks sense Tagoma's ki, but not sense Frieza's ki? It just doesn't make any sense to me since the characters were able to sense Frieza before he even showed up, and Frieza is stronger than Tagoma, yet Goten and Trunks weren't able to sense him? I don't know, it's Dragon Ball Super, things don't make sense. Well, with that, episode 22 is finished. Overall, I thought that this episode was alright. It had a lot of things that annoyed me, like Gohan's redesign or the lack of blood, for example. Those problems weighed down the episode for me and make me want to give it a 1. But what really saves this episode from being scored too poorly is Tagoma. I really like this guy. He's a minor villain compared to Frieza, but I am surprised that the writers took this character, who initially died in the movie, and they kept him alive and gave depth to his character. I know that at this point it's just me comparing Super to the movie version, but honestly, this is probably one of the best decisions Super has made so far. So, congratulations Tagoma, because of you, my scoring for this episode is a 3 out of 5. Episode 22 begins with Tagoma challenging Earth's fighters. Piccolo is the first one to fight, but he gets taken out effortlessly. Then suddenly out of nowhere, Gotenks shows up. Everyone is surprised to see him, but as soon as he challenges Frieza, he defuses. So Goten and Trunks run off to the sidelines. Tagoma then encounters a frog that writes the words "change now" onto the ground. Because of this, Tagoma and the frog switch bodies, and it's revealed that the frog was Captain Ginyu. Ginyu explains his story and how he survived, and now that he's in Tagoma's body, he is ready to fight against the group. Ginyu is even more powerful than Tagoma was before, so everyone gets whooped by Ginyu. Meanwhile, in another dimension, Goku and Vegeta continue to train. Back on Earth, Gohan fights against Ginyu, but is easily outmatched. That is, until Gohan turns into a Super Saiyan. He is able to fight back and advises the injured Ginyu to give up, but their fight gets interrupted by Frieza. Frieza gets pissed seeing Gohan act merciful, so Frieza tortures Gohan, blasting holes through his body until he collapses. Frieza then launches a blast at Gohan, and right before it hits, Piccolo jumps in front of the blast, shielding Gohan from it, and the episode ends with Piccolo's sacrifice. Before I go into my review for this episode, I just wanted to disclose the fact that I fucking hate this episode. The first thing that really pissed me off was how Gotenks was involved in this arc. I mentioned before that I got annoyed that the series excluded Goten and Trunks from this arc, initially with the excuse that they were kids and they shouldn't be here. They have reused that same excuse here and it's still bullshit. Again, they brought along Roshi out of all people. Gotenks is way stronger than everyone else. This point actually gets addressed by Gotenks, and he brings up a good point in that Who cares how old he is? His strength is all that matters. I completely agree with this. And since when did Dragon Ball characters start moralizing over children fighting? When Goku saved the world from Piccolo, he was like 15. Gohan participated in the fight against the Saiyans when he was only 5. And when Gohan killed Cell, he was only 10 years old. Goten and Trunks should have been around 12 and 13. And remember, these two kids were 7 and 8 during the Buu arc, and they were being trained to defeat Buu and save the world. Fast forward to this arc where they're older, and suddenly there's a problem with them fighting against the villains. Why is this such a problem now? Where's the consistency? And to make things even worse, Goten and Trunks defuse after like a minute of screen time. Like, how is that even possible? So let me get this straight. Goten and Trunks sense Togama's energy. They fly off, unfused mind you. They fly off towards the battlefield and show up fused together. This would imply that along the way, Goten and Trunks fused. The fusion they perform is established to last 30 minutes. But we don't know when the kids fused. There's no fucking way that 30 minutes passed. It's actually impossible. Again, where's the consistency? I guess Gotenks is just doomed to die as a gag character. So yeah, they end up defusing real quick. It's pretty obvious to me why Goten and Trunks were included. No, it wasn't because having them there would make sense to the story. No, instead they were included in so there can be a scene of Frieza realizing that Goten looks like Goku, and that also Trunks resembles the guy who killed him. Who actually cares about this lame callback? This literally feels like fanfiction levels of nonsense. Oh, what if Frieza met Goten and Trunks? How would he react to seeing them? Does it actually matter so much that Frieza has to interact with Goten and Trunks that Super feels the need to waste my time by literally feeding me this BS? No, the answer is no. It wasn't really important to include that bit into the episode, but thanks for wasting my time, Super. In this arc especially, the amount of flashbacks are insane. They cut away to a flashback for everything. Frieza remembers Trunks, flashback. Ginyu comes back, flashback. Gohan spares Ginyu, flashback. Enough already! No more of these annoying little flashbacks. I don't need to be reminded of what happened. But Exotic, you understand that the reason why they have these flashbacks is because people might not remember the Frieza arc. That story happened years ago. Yes, I understand why they are there. But do you mean to tell me that the average Dragon Ball viewer wouldn't know the events of the Frieza arc? I mean, this arc is probably one of the most popular and iconic in the series. How could anyone not know who Ginyu is or how Frieza died? It's just stupid padding for this episode's runtime. It's totally unnecessary. And oh boy, if you thought I was upset before. So next we have Ginyu as a frog switching bodies with Togama. I hate this. I really do. I just don't understand why Dragon Ball Super would decide to completely ruin Togama's character. Like, seriously, fuck you, Dragon Ball Super! I actually started to like Togama, so now I'm upset. Togama went from a cautious guy to a stone-cold badass. His development was not only interesting, but believable. He showed up to the battlefield kicking ass, proving to Frieza his worth. What was the point in creating a developed character if you're just gonna take all of his development and throw it away in the trash just so that Captain Ginyu, a character that wasn't even all that interesting to begin with, can come back? Literally nobody asked for this. And to make things even worse, Ginyu and Togama switched bodies because Togama said change now. That's not how Captain Ginyu's power works! In order to change bodies with someone, Ginyu needs to be facing them and say, change now. Obviously, as a frog, this would mean that Ginyu would be unable to talk and therefore his power can't be used. Which is why he was stuck as a frog for years. But Super once again throws consistency out of the window and now Ginyu can change bodies if somebody else says change now. And this raises more questions like, if anyone could have said change now, then why didn't Ginyu try and trick a human? And yes, I understand that Ginyu writes in an alien language, but you mean to tell me that all those years, Ginyu couldn't learn to write in another language? It's literally 2 words, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And just to make things even more brain dead than they already are, they even reference a filler episode where Bulma and Ginyu changed bodies. And in that episode, Bulma has to create a voice box in order for Ginyu to talk. And it's only then where he's able to switch bodies. Fuck this episode, seriously. And to make things even more brain dead than it already was, they don't even stay consistent on how power transitions when switching bodies. Okay, so when Goku fought against Ginyu on Namek, it was stated that Goku had a power level of 180,000. Ginyu ends up switching bodies with Goku, believing that he would immediately become more powerful. However, when his power level gets checked, it's only 23,000, which is considerably weaker than his original body. Goku states that this is because Ginyu could not fully control his body since it originally wasn't his. The mind and the body are disconnected, and so Ginyu became weaker. But Super just forgot about that plot point and just decided, you know what? When Ginyu switches bodies with Togama, he gets stronger, not weaker! It doesn't make any sense! Jocko tries to explain this by saying that because of Ginyu's fighting experience, he's able to utilize Togama's power, blah blah blah, shut up. But again, that's just not how Ginyu's power works. Well, the only other thing that I have to complain about was how they handled Piccolo's sacrifice. Piccolo blocks a lethal blow from hitting Gohan, and this is a clear homage to when Piccolo saved Gohan from Nappa's attack. The main difference between these two scenes is that the one in Dragon Ball is actually emotional, while this one comes across as a shameful copy. The music, animation, and context of the scene just make it feel way worse. I will say that I really enjoyed seeing Togama being a badass at the beginning of the episode. What a shame that his character ended up being ruined. Rest in peace, Togama, you were great while you were here. Lastly, I did really like the scene where Frieza tortures Gohan. Frieza is a truly evil character, and this scene perfectly sells how sadistic he can really be. He constantly shoots ki blasts through Gohan's body, crippling him in the process, all while laughing and taking pleasure in watching him scream in pain. It's a brutal scene, and Super did a fantastic job at delivering that level of impact, even if there is no blood. But even with those few positives, the bad far outweighs the good. There's just too much shit in this episode that I absolutely despise, so my scoring for this episode is a 1 out of 5. Alright, so episode 23 begins with Piccolo dead from Frieza's attack, with Whis not responding to Bulma's call for help. However, Whis eventually pulls Goku and Vegeta out from the other dimension and notices Bulma's message. Unfortunately, it would take 35 minutes for Whis to take Goku and Vegeta back to Earth, and Goku can't use instant transmission because he can't sense anyone's energy. So they are stuck in Beerus' world. Despite his injuries, Gohan powers up as much as his body can handle. His energy gets noticed by Goku and he's able to teleport to Earth. Now Frieza is ready to throw hands with Goku and Vegeta. Before they fight, Captain Ginyu gets frustrated with the two for being stuck in a frog's body, so he fights them first. But he is quickly and effortlessly taken out in one blast from Vegeta, to Goku's disapproval. Now ready to fight, Frieza enters the battle and immediately enters his final form. And the episode ends with Goku stepping up to challenge Frieza. I really don't know what I'm expecting from this series. At this point, I'm just dreading every single episode of this arc, wishing that it would just magically be good or that it ends. So to the surprise of no one, this is yet another incredibly disappointing episode. Not as frustrating as the last, but still pretty bad. One of Dragon Ball's biggest problems is how it handles death. Death in Dragon Ball is completely meaningless because if someone dies, they can easily be brought back with the Dragon Balls. The impact of Piccolo's death was completely overshadowed by this fact, and the show doesn't even try to pretend otherwise. In fact, Goku even says that they can use the Dragon Balls, which again makes Piccolo's death meaningless. Oh, Piccolo died? Aw, damn, that sucks. Well, we can just switch him back to life with the Dragon Balls. Doing that literally just kills any sort of stakes in the story, since no one ever really dies. Hell, not even the villains stay dead. And again, we have Goten and Trunks being sent off from the fight. I just don't understand what the point of this is. I mean, I already explained this before, and yeah, it's just so stupid. Even unfused Goten and Trunks are still extremely powerful. They're able to turn Super Saiyan and can contribute a lot more to the fight than Tien and Roshi. And now that I think about it, what about Bulma? I mean, her purpose in this arc was to get in contact with Whis. They achieved this goal, so shouldn't Bulma leave as well? Bulma has no powers, so if she were to be attacked, she would have absolutely no way of defending herself. At least Goten and Trunks can fight and turn into Super Saiyans, but no, they are little kids and they can't fight dangerous opponents like Frieza. But fighting Majin Buu on the other hand, yeah, that's totally fine. Way to be consistent, Super, really pushing my buttons. But now that I've brought him up, why the hell has Tien done like nothing this entire arc? He shows up to fight against Frieza's army, and once they back off, he just fades into the background. Like he seriously has nothing else to contribute so far. Not even reactions or commentary, all of that is left for Krillin. Yeah, Krillin is like the only fighter that provides commentary and reactions. Like what the fuck, so Roshi and Tien are just doing nothing then? Why are they still here? Shouldn't they also be leaving too then? I don't know, Dragon Ball just hates Tien. He's an irrelevant character. Now it's all about Goku and Vegeta. What really rubbed me the wrong way was Goku's whining over Vegeta killing Ginyu. Goku screams out, "That was too far, you killed him without even giving him a chance." This is probably one of the most beta things I've ever heard Goku say. I've always felt that his views on killing have been kinda inconsistent in the series, as if Goku's willingness to kill just depends on the story. In the Red Ribbon arc, he has no problem killing Officer Black despite him trying to retreat, nor does he care about killing Tambourine, Drum, and Piccolo. No second chances for them, I guess. Later on, he had no issues with Vegeta killing Pui Pui, and Goku even killed Yakan as well with no issues there. But he did take an issue with Vegeta killing Birder and Raccoon, and Goku cares about Vegeta killing Ginyu here. Keep in mind, this isn't some deep aspect of Goku's character. The whole idea of Goku showing mercy was first elaborated when he spared Vegeta in the Saiyan arc. However, Goku's decision to spare Vegeta wasn't a virtuous act. It was actually an act of selfishness. Goku wanted to spare Vegeta because he enjoyed being challenged by someone so strong, and he thought it would be a waste of talent. Heck, Goku even has that same mentality and expresses it to Frieza before fighting him. And not to jump too far ahead in the future, but this mentality would also be reused later in the Moro arc, where Goku expresses his disappointment with how Moro could have grown stronger so that they could fight again. The strongest example of Goku being truly merciful is during his first fight with Frieza. Frieza gets cut in half by his own attack and begs Goku for mercy. Goku reluctantly gives in and bestows Frieza some of his energy, only for Frieza to try to attack Goku while his back is turned. So Goku fires back and his blast ends up defeating Frieza. And this battle ends with Goku showing genuine disappointment because of what decision Frieza made and what he did in response. Again, this is probably the strongest example of Goku being anti-killing and truly merciful. But in his fight with Vegeta, and even for future fights after Frieza, Goku has been shown to primarily care about the well-being of his opponent because he sees them as new obstacles for him to overcome. So this whole concept of Goku being upset that Ginyu was killed without being given a chance is kinda stupid. I have a feeling that the main purpose of this behavior, in this context, is actually just to be contrary to Vegeta's character, where Goku is kind and merciful, while Vegeta is ruthless and cold. Regardless, it was a really stupid moment. But what absolutely pisses me off to no end was seeing Gohan in such a pathetic state. Like Super does everything to ruin Gohan. They drastically changed his design from what it previously was, giving him a whack haircut and a goofy ass green tracksuit. They depower him so much that he doesn't even know if he could turn into a Super Saiyan anymore. Like, how does that even make any sense? From Cell's defeat to the beginning of the Buu arc, Gohan spent 7 years of his life not training. Yet, even with all that time passing, he could still hold his own against Dabura and confidently turn into a Super Saiyan 2. Yes, he was weaker compared to when he fought Cell, but it didn't completely ruin him. Compare that Gohan to how he is being portrayed now, and it doesn't make any sense. This current arc only takes place about a year after Battle of Gods. How on earth did Gohan lose that much power where he questions whether he can't even turn into a Super Saiyan anymore? Fucking nonsense. And during his power-up sequence, he is just drawn in this silly, lengthy style. I have no idea why anyone thought this was a good idea. How anyone thought this was an appropriate way to treat one of your main characters. And just to put the cherry on top, we get this lovely image of Gohan. Thank you, Dragon Ball Super, for ruining this amazing character. And just to rub more salt in the wound, Gohan then whines about if he only kept up his training. Like, I've been upset before about the series reusing old plot points, and this is no different. It's like a cycle with Gohan. Like, seriously, how many times has this plot point been brought up? Gohan doesn't train in the Buu arc, and that bites him in the ass. He doesn't train in this arc, and that bites him in the ass. He doesn't train in the superhero movie, and that bites him in the ass. My main problem is like, okay, if you want Gohan to be interested in working and being a family man, then just make him into that and call it a day. I'd be okay with this, since I just view it as character development. But clearly Super wants to have Gohan be a semi-relevant character, and for that he will need to be a fighter. So just pick one, damn it! Stop being indecisive about this and having this character constantly flip back and forth on what he wants to do. This is so irritating, I swear. I actually liked almost nothing in this episode. I had a negative thing to say for pretty much everything. Small moments aren't good enough for me to justify raising up the score like I did with Togama. So with that, my scoring for this episode is a 1 out of 5. Very disappointing, Super. Episode 24 begins with Goku and Frieza about to fight each other. During the beginning, Frieza's strategy is to attack Goku's friends, with the goal to cause him the most anguish possible. And while Goku is able to easily protect his friends, this does allow opportunities for Frieza to get the upper hand on Goku. Their fight gets interrupted by Vegeta stepping in and attacking Goku to the surprise and confusion of everyone, including myself. Vegeta is frustrated with how Goku and Frieza are holding back, so they agree to get serious and decide to use their full power. And with that, Goku demonstrates his brand new transformation, a divine power that has blue aura. This transformation is the power of the previously used Super Saiyan God combined with the power of a Super Saiyan, a Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. With that, Goku prepares himself for whatever Frieza has in store for him. Alright, I would consider this a very important episode. However, it's framed like a normal episode. I find this really odd since it has a brand new transformation. I mean, obviously I'm going to talk about the new transformation, but I'll save that for the end, because there are a lot of things to unpack and for me to rant about. The first thing I really wanted to talk about was the pacing. This episode was just so damn slow. You've probably heard me say this before, but it's like there wasn't enough material to make a full episode. So they just had to slow everything down and pad out the episode with random moments that take away from the action. Like before Goku and Frieza fight, they have this stare down with each other. It's actually pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. But it gets weighed down just by how long it lasts. And the same thing goes for Vegeta congratulating Frieza. He just claps and claps and claps, and again, it's not inherently bad. It just lasts too long, and I believe it weakens this episode's pacing. To go over the padding, the episode constantly cuts away to the characters on the sidelines having mostly pointless dialogue. They cut away to show Jocko trying to leave the battlefield, but Bulma not letting him, and the cast noticing the resemblances between Jocko and Frieza. Like, isn't the focus of the episode Goku versus Frieza? Why are we focusing on this? They also stall the fight to have Vegeta fight Goku, for God's sake. This was so dumb and confusing, not just for me, but for the characters as well. Like, I totally get where Vegeta's coming from. Both Goku and Frieza aren't using their full power, and so they are just dragging out the fight unnecessarily, while Vegeta is just expected to be on standby until it's his turn. But angrily attacking Goku for a while without saying anything is just so dumb. It doesn't make sense for Vegeta to do something this idiotic. And this leads to another episode of padding where the characters are wondering, oh geez Rick, is Vegeta gonna go back to his evil ways and serve Frieza again? It's just there to add completely unnecessary tension and melodrama. It's so meaningless. And they also had this moment where Bulma, Krillin, and Gohan are like, oh no, Vegeta wouldn't betray us, he'd never turn against his family. Completely ignoring that one time where Vegeta has betrayed his family, or that other time where Vegeta has betrayed his family. Oh, but Exotic, I hear you say. Vegeta has changed and he wouldn't do that anymore. And you know what? I actually agree with you on that. My only real problem is that from the beginning of Super, I felt that Vegeta's character has regressed in some ways. Specifically how he went back to being a petty rival to Goku when he was supposed to not care about that anymore. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if Super just forgot about Vegeta's character growth and had him do something incredibly stupid. I mean, Toriyama himself already walked back Vegeta's character development. I'm sure Toei isn't above making stupid decisions. And based off this series so far, trust me, they aren't. I did like Frieza attacking Goku's friends who were on the sidelines. It's been a pretty common thing in Dragon Ball that while one person fights, everyone just stands around, watches, and commentates. It makes perfect sense for a pure evil villain like Frieza to go after them, to not only cause Goku anguish, but to also use this as opportunities to catch him off guard and get the upper hand. I think it's cool for a villain to try to exploit this common trope that we have seen for such a long time now. What I didn't like was the fact that after doing this, Goku, Vegeta, or just the characters themselves, minus Jaco, they don't think, hey, maybe we should just leave the battlefield and staying here would just put ourselves in danger and we would be inconveniences for Goku and Vegeta. This is a point that even Krillin makes in the Saiyan arc when he and Gohan leave the battlefield because they understand that they would just be a distraction for Goku. No one bothers to think about this except Jaco, who is actually concerned for his well-being. He actually tries to leave, but Bulma doesn't let him because reasons, I guess. I mean, Jaco can't do shit against Frieza, and it's not like his army is still around, so there's nothing really left for him to do. So why even bother keeping him around? Why even bother keeping anyone else around other than Vegeta? What is Gohan contributing? What is Krillin doing? How is Bulma gonna help? This is a major problem in this arc and in Dragon Ball generally speaking. Power just increases more and more with each story arc, so other characters who aren't as strong can contribute in any way. Bulma's like the only character that actually contributes due to her tech. You know, if this story was written better, they would figure out ways to make these characters more useful without needing them to be the strongest in the universe or whatever. Again, think back to the Saiyan arc where Krillin, Piccolo, Tien, Chaozu, and Gohan all fought together against Nappa. Nappa was clearly more powerful than all of them, but through teamwork they were able to fight back. All these characters have their own strengths, weaknesses, and techniques that make them unique. And you're telling me that no one can do anything to help? Nobody can help out in this fight? This is just stupid and bad writing. There was also the small moment where Frieza tries to poke Goku's eyes, only for Goku to stop him and be disappointed with Frieza going for a dirty move. And Frieza responds back telling Goku that this isn't a game, this is his revenge! I actually really like this moment because it highlights another point that I brought up earlier, that Goku believes that everyone else fights with the same mentality as he does. My problem with this scene is that this aspect of Goku's personality gets mischaracterized as him being overconfident, which again isn't true. And the show does a lot to prove otherwise, with this moment being one of them. So I'm glad that this episode is proving me right, and I'm not just some ranting idiot with bad points. Okay, maybe I am a ranting idiot, but my points are good and they are being reinforced by the show itself, so haha. Here is the moment that I have been just dying to talk about. Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Oh boy, what an absolute mouthful of a name. The design of this form, much like the last one, isn't too drastic. It keeps the base design of what Goku would look like as a Super Saiyan, but instead of yellow hair, it turns blue. Also, the aura around the user is more flame-like, with little sparkles thrown into it as well. Now, how do I feel about this transformation? It's definitely a mixed bag for me. Now, I did say previously that I like the Super Saiyan God form. I like the simple design and the color because I felt as if it was just normal Goku but with divine energy in him. But with Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, I just don't like the form. Its existence is just really unnecessary. In the last arc, we got introduced to this new level of obtainable power, that being God Ki. Goku is able to become a Super Saiyan God, but the form ends up running out and Goku is never able to fully utilize it. So instead of keeping that form and developing it further, what Super decided to do was throw away that form and create a brand new transformation that's just inferior to Super Saiyan God. In Battle of Gods, Super Saiyan God was the transformation at the center of the arc. It's what got Beerus and Whis to come around and interact with all the characters we know, and it's because of Beerus that the form was even discovered to begin with. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Super Saiyan God has a lot of significance to that story since its existence kickstarts the entire arc. In contrast, Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan is a form that almost has no build-up or excitement to it. We saw a moment where Goku and Vegeta discovered this power, but that's all we have seen of this new form, up until this point. When Goku transforms, it's a very quick and uneventful transformation. The only other transformation that came out of nowhere was Super Saiyan 3, another transformation that should have never existed either. But to be fair to Super Saiyan 3, this form does get a lot of time dedicated to its appearance. Goku's transformation is met with awe as every other character is astonished by his unbelievable power. With Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, holy shit, I am getting tired of writing that out. The show dedicates no time to build up the form, and when it does get revealed, while there is awe, they also spend time making fun of the ridiculousness of the form. Oh look, it's Super Saiyan but with blue hair. Oh, how confusing the name is. It's Super Saiyan God with the power of a Super Saiyan. I'm just curious on what the purpose of this form even serves to the overall story, and why this form had to replace the red hair form. From my perspective, Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan is an unnecessary transformation with a stupid name, and it doesn't mean anything to the story. It's just there to be a new transformation, and that's fucking retarded. Now, let's get on to the scoring. Episode 24 for me was a below average warm-up fight. It has a lot of action and some good interactions between the hero and villain, but what really weighs down this episode is that it spends a lot of time dragging its feet. The pacing slows down and has a lot of unnecessary moments that waste time, such as the moments with Jocko, Vegeta fighting Goku, and Vegeta clapping. We got a brand new transformation that has no significance to it, and to make things worse, the art and animation is fucking ass. All that comes together to make this episode even worse, so my scoring for this episode is a 2 out of 5. I was gonna rate it a 3 out of 5, however what really sealed in the 2 for me was the art and animation. It's just a bad episode. Episode 25 continues the fight between Goku and Frieza. This time it's Frieza's turn to demonstrate his new power. He transforms into a golden state which he calls Golden Frieza. In this state, he seems to actually be stronger than Goku, giving him a hard time in their fight. While that happens, Beerus and Whis make their way to Earth. They get interrupted by Champa and Vados, the god of destruction and angel of Universe 6. They talk briefly before departing back to Earth. When they arrive on Earth, they show no interest in Goku and Frieza's fight, but rather they only showed up because of the strawberry sundae that Bulma had offered them previously. Frieza then notices Beerus and is intimidated by his presence. But Beerus lets him know that he won't interfere with Frieza's revenge, to the surprise of the rest of the characters. And the episode ends with the fight resuming and Goku getting knocked down from Frieza's attacks. Okay, definitely a little better than the last few episodes. I mean, considering how bad those episodes were, it's not really saying much. Unfortunately, this is another bad episode of Dragon Ball Super, surprise surprise. Which sucks for me because my voice gets so tired with all the yelling. So I'll just begin by going over some positives. I absolutely love Golden Frieza. Gold and purple is such a cool color combination, and especially so when considering what those colors represent. And I'm not just talking about the Los Angeles Lakers here. I'm talking about the meaning of colors. Gold is shiny and can be seen as rare, important, or of high value, and purple can signify royalty and status. This perfectly encapsulates the character of Frieza, who is a complete egomaniac who literally views himself at the top of the pecking order. I know that this transformation doesn't give Frieza a drastic design change like his previous forms did, but I still like the golden form and believe it was a great decision to give this to Frieza. Another thing that I really liked was how Beerus and Whis acted on Earth. When arriving on Earth, the two gods do not care about Goku or Frieza. They only care about the dessert and that's it. Frieza asks Beerus if he'll stop him, and Beerus tells Frieza that he won't. I really love this aspect of Beerus' character. With both the Destroyer God and Angel being integrated into the main cast of characters, it presents a problem. They both are so incredibly powerful that they could easily solve any problem that comes their way. However, what helps fix this problem is that they act as a mostly neutral party, choosing to not get involved in other characters' conflicts. I really like Beerus and Whis as characters, and I think this is a good way to handle them. They can be a part of the story, but not get them involved in the main conflict as to not easily resolve things. What I didn't like was Beerus and Whis showing up to Earth. In a previous episode, I thought it was stupid that the characters on the sidelines like Bulma decided not to leave the battlefield despite Frieza's multiple attempts at killing them. Even in this episode, Frieza states again that he will kill all of Goku's friends and family. It's really idiotic for any of them to stick around. But with Beerus and Whis being there, Super makes things even worse because their presence just creates a safety net for the other characters, and this obviously lowers the tension and stakes of the story. Just like with the last episode, there are issues that continue to ruin the pacing. It's so infuriating watching this episode and seeing just how unfocused it actually is. This is supposed to be a transformation and action-focused episode, with both Goku and Frieza fighting in their brand new forms. However, this episode drags its feet and pads the episode's runtime with meaningless dialogue between Goku and Frieza. On top of that, Super also decides to cut away to a stupid, unfunny gag between Bulma and Jocko. Ugh, really? These gags aren't funny, it just ruins the mood and wastes my time. And to make this episode even more in focus than what it already was, during Goku and Frieza's fight, Beerus and Whis run into the gods of the 6th universe, Champa and Vados. Beerus and Champa have this small back and forth which serves as a setup for the next arc. I like the idea of the story naturally leading into the next story arc, but this is not how you should do that! Instead of dedicating this episode to the action, Super decides to include setup for the next story arc. This just shows me the lack of confidence from the creators of the show. Instead of trying to get the viewers excited about the current arc, Super decides that the fight between Goku and Frieza is so important that they have to put it on pause and tease a future arc. I mean, I get it, this entire story arc sucks, but just because it sucks doesn't mean you should just give up on it and hope the audience gets interested in what's coming later down the line. That's just absolutely pathetic. And just to add another layer of unfocus, when Beerus and Whis arrive on Earth, the story focuses on their interest in the ice cream rather than the fight. I really don't understand what they were thinking in this episode. Seeing Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan is probably the biggest highlight of this arc, and the series decides to completely gloss over it to instead focus on other things that take away interest in the action. And the action is really important to the story, that's like what makes Dragon Ball what it is. The episode ends with Goku getting hurt by Frieza. This would suggest that Frieza is stronger than Goku, but Super decides to wait until the last 30 seconds of the episode to convey this point. Maybe if Super had focused on the action, we as the audience could have been able to properly see the difference in power rather than Frieza just suddenly getting the upper hand. This episode is just awful. While there were positive things I had to say, there was just so many problems that I just didn't care if there were things that I liked. This episode is just unfocused and the pacing is terrible, so for that, my scoring for episode 25 is a 1 out of 5. Episode 26 gets right into the action where Goku is struggling to fight Frieza. It's a losing battle for Goku. Frieza is just too powerful in his golden form. However, there is a catch to his new power. Frieza never trained himself to handle his new power, and so the golden form is quickly burning through his energy. Goku is able to endure Frieza's attacks long enough until Frieza ends up in a depowered state. Right when it seems like Goku is about to win, he gets shot in the back by Sorbet. This was all a part of Frieza's plan just in case things didn't turn out well. The tables turn completely and Goku is stuck in a depowered and wounded state. Just before Frieza finishes off Goku, Vegeta steps in ready to fight. Going into episode 26, I wasn't expecting much. However, I was actually surprised at how well this episode had improved on the problems before. It may just be that I have low expectations, but I actually somehow enjoyed this episode, despite the fact that I still found many issues with it. I first wanted to start off by talking about the pacing. Before, I was complaining a lot about how the episodes feel slow, and that there was extra dialogue to stall for time. Well, this time around, the pacing was much better. It got right into the action, and honestly, I enjoyed seeing the fight between Goku and Frieza. It felt like a normal paced episode, and it never felt as if Super was wasting my time. Another thing that I also really liked was that Super actually addressed an issue that has actually been a part of Dragon Ball for a long time, and that's the lack of teamwork between Goku and Vegeta due to their pride. I remember first seeing something like this in the Buu arc, where both Goku and Vegeta refused to fuse together to fight against Buu, despite their fused form able to easily defeat Buu. And later, when Buu does arrive, they play rock paper scissors to see who fights first. Goku and Vegeta also take turns fighting in this arc too. Both of those scenes are incredibly stupid. It just gives the impression that the characters aren't taking anything seriously. How am I, as the audience, supposed to take this seriously when the main characters act like it's a game? Goku and Vegeta wanting to handle things with their own power can be explained by their Saiyan pride. Being prideful makes perfect sense for Vegeta's character, but this character trait comes out of nowhere for Goku. Goku doesn't really have Saiyan pride. I just mentioned how both Goku and Vegeta refused to fuse again in the Buu arc, right? Well, even that doesn't make any sense considering how before Goku was yelling at Vegeta to put away his pride and fuse together since that was the only way for them to fight against Buu. In this scene, Goku is being the reasonable one and Vegeta is being his usual petty self, wasting precious time to be angry at Goku for hiding Super Saiyan 3. Goku then has to yell at him more and remind him that everyone that they know is dead because of Boo. And this ends up pushing Vegeta to fuse with Goku. Even after the fusion ends, Vegeta breaks the earring and refuses to fuse with Goku again. And Goku gets angry and argues about the fusion, and why they still might need it. This is just one example I got at the end of the series. I could go back to the fight with Raditz for even more proof too. Goku has no problem fighting 2 against 1, he takes the fight seriously, and when asked if he's excited about the challenge, Goku says no. I could already tell that if this was modern Super Goku, he'd be ecstatic with the thought of fighting someone so strong. Sorry about the ranting, but I just really wanted to discuss this topic because the Saiyan pride trait gets used constantly, leading to a multitude of completely idiotic decisions throughout the series. This moment right here is one of those idiotic decisions. By not working together, Goku and Vegeta are putting the lives of their friends, family, and the entire planet at risk, all to satisfy their ego. I completely disagree with this writing decision to make Goku into a more prideful character. While this is a problem, I am at least happy that Super acknowledges this as a negative trait. I also just wanted to say that I hate seeing how this episode reinforced the point that the other characters would just get in the way if they join the fight. I already addressed why I think this is incredibly stupid that the other characters can't get involved, but I just hate seeing this stupidity get validated by the story. Frieza's 4-month training being used as a plot point actually really surprised me. I just assumed that the 4 months was an arbitrary time frame, but no. Frieza rushing his training actually comes back to bite him, because he never learned to develop the power of his new form. This is actually a really cool concept brought up way back in the Cell arc, where Goku and Gohan master the Super Saiyan form, so it doesn't consume so much energy. Of course, this took them a lot of time to do, so someone like Frieza who just achieved a new form wouldn't be able to fully manage the drawbacks of it. I really appreciate the consistency. However, now that I think about it, wouldn't this also apply to Goku too? I know that the writers wanted Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan to be a surprise, which is why in both the movie version and the anime adaptation, there is little to no details of Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. What Super fails to understand is that in the movie version, it's implied that Goku and Vegeta have been training with their blue forms for a while, but in the series, we actually never get to see Goku and Vegeta develop their new power. We only get to see them discovering this new power. From the series perspective, Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan is an underdeveloped new level of power just like Golden Frieza, and so Goku shouldn't have good control over it either. Alright, it's time we talk about probably the most controversial part in this arc, Goku being defeated by what's described as a common ray gun. Yes, Goku, the mightiest warrior in the universe, gets taken out by a common ray gun. I hate this, it's incredibly dumb. Earlier in the arc, it was established that Goku was overconfident. The only reason why this happened was so that the writers can artificially create an example of Goku being overconfident. I've already gone over why this characterization isn't accurate, so I won't go into that again. What I will say though is that I cannot believe how backwards the writing is in this story. Super states that Goku is overconfident. Instead of using past examples of his overconfidence, they create one themselves in order to prove themselves right. It's such an embarrassing, weak, and sad level of writing. Moving on, I'll complain about the ray gun that takes out Goku. So Goku gets shot in the back by a common ray gun, which blasts a hole in his chest and incapacitates him. This is a little different compared to how it happened in the movie version, where Goku was shot in his blue form, whereas in the series he depowers into his normal state before getting shot. I think this change is good since Goku getting hurt in his normal state makes much more sense than him getting hurt using his literal god powers. I also like the idea that even strong characters can be defeated by weaker characters if they strategize and catch their opponents off guard. What I have a problem with is that Dragon Ball as a series doesn't even support this. I mean, in this very arc, Whis literally advises the other characters to not get involved since they will get in the way. Yet, in a later scene, we are shown Sorbet sneak attacking Goku and defeating him with what's implied to be a weak weapon. If that's possible, then why doesn't someone like Krillin or Piccolo use the Destructo Disc or Special Beam Cannon and kill Frieza by surprise? Oh, but they can't do that because having Goku fight Frieza will satisfy his ego, and teamwork is bad. Only fight one-on-one, no helping. Just completely brain dead. And another thing, it just doesn't make any sense why this weak weapon would even scratch Goku. I mean, this is the same guy who as a kid, with no real training in ki control, got shot multiple times and the bullets had no lasting damage on him. He got hurt by them, but he felt fine after shrugging it off. And you mean to tell me that this is the same guy who now has the power of the gods and is stronger than the majority of the gods in his universe, by the way? You mean to tell me that he could get taken out by a common ray gun? No, I don't buy it at all. It just doesn't make any sense. To make things even worse than they already are, there is still no blood in the series. Seriously, it's so jarring seeing these characters have huge open wounds where they are literally incapacitated and there is no blood to represent their pain and damage they've taken. Unbelievable. With that being said, my scoring for this episode is 3 out of 5. Episode 27, the final episode in the Resurrection F arc of Super. In this episode, Vegeta takes over the fight since Goku is badly hurt. Vegeta is able to rescue Goku and he's healed by a sensu bean. He wastes no time and reveals that he also has Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. In this state, he makes quick work of Frieza, forcing him into a corner. This is where Frieza uses his last resort, and within a matter of seconds, he completely destroys the Earth, killing everyone on the planet. The only survivors were those who stood by Beerus and Whis, who shielded themselves from the blast. However, Whis reveals that he can perform a temporal do-over, where he can reverse time by 3 minutes. This gives Goku a second chance to finish off Frieza before he can destroy the Earth. So time gets reversed and Goku charges in the fight and uses the Kamehameha to defeat Frieza. Now that they prevented the Earth from being destroyed, everyone comes together having a massive feast because once again, the world was saved. Wow, this episode was a huge mixed bag for me. I'll start off with the positives. This episode's climax was absolutely phenomenal. It's always pretty cool seeing a villain pull out an unexpected trick up their sleeve. In this case, a desperate Frieza decided that if he was going to go down, then he's going to take out whatever he can, and in this case, he ended up destroying the Earth. And what's crazier is that it's implied that Frieza most likely survived after the blast, because his species can exist in the vacuum of space. Frieza's last resort and his sneak attack on Goku definitely showed that he was prepared for the fight and had backup plans in case things didn't go his way. While his lust for revenge caused him to battle in an underdeveloped transformation, he still had the intelligence to get ahead of the heroes, taking them by surprise. This whole plan of his was a well done surprise that I really enjoyed seeing, and if I hadn't watched the Resurrection F movie, then I would have not expected this at all. The whole scene was brilliantly made as well. No one expected Frieza to do this, so the feeling of surprise is something that is reflected in the episode. While the planet is being destroyed, other characters not involved in the action are just living their normal lives, totally unaware of what's happening. By the time that anyone would realize what's happening, it's already too late and everyone on Earth suddenly dies along with the entire planet. That feeling of surprise was executed extremely well. When everyone gets saved, Gohan quickly leaves to check up on Videl and Pan. They are of course fine, but seeing the Earth explode just minutes ago got him worried, so he rushes home and embraces his family. And I really like seeing this because it does a good job at making these characters feel like real people by humanizing them. It was a really good ending seeing everyone happy together in celebration. Another thing that I liked from this episode was Vegeta's fight against Frieza. He just goes into the fight and completely dominates. None of that holding back shit that Goku likes to pull. Both Goku and Vegeta see Frieza as a way to challenge themselves. However, Goku intentionally drags out the fight while Vegeta doesn't hold anything back and tries to end things quickly. And while I don't agree with most of the choices the writers made with Goku and Vegeta's characters, this episode does a good job at displaying the differences between them. Oh, and Sorbet getting unexpectedly killed by a deflected ki blast was actually pretty funny and nice karma for sneak attacking Goku. But that's where my total praise is gonna end, because everything else in this episode made me feel mixed, or I just didn't like it. The first thing that really pissed me off was those goddamn sensu beans. I need to say this, sensu beans are bullshit. They are basically the equivalent to a full restore from Pokemon. You use one of those and whoop, back to perfect condition. This is probably one of the dumbest things to ever come out of Dragon Ball, and have been a problem for me ever since it started getting used as healing items in an RPG. Sensu beans are the ultimate get out of jail free card since they undo and thus invalidate any damage done. Goku goes easy on Frieza and he gets punished by Sorbet's sneak attack. This actually does significant damage to Goku, pretty much incapacitating him. However, shortly after, Goku eats a sensu bean and is instantly back on his feet with his usual cheery attitude. Yeah, everything Frieza just did was completely useless, since the Senzu Bean makes it so that there is no lasting impact. Another item that makes it so that the story has no lasting impact is the Dragon Balls. In this arc, Piccolo dies trying to protect Gohan. The story tries to make this an emotional moment with him bravely sacrificing himself, but once you remember that death in Dragon Ball is meaningless, death starts to lose its impact. They can just use the Dragon Balls to wish anyone back to life with no consequences. This severely damages the story since anything that happens can be undone by the Dragon Balls. And speaking of undoing things, let me go over Whis' temporal do-over. So Whis uses this to reverse time to go back before the Earth was destroyed, giving Goku another chance to defeat Frieza. Before I start ranting again, I just want to say this about Whis' power. On paper, I actually like Whis having this ability. His role as an angel is to be the attendant to a god of destruction. However, that doesn't mean that Whis is beneath Beerus. By giving Whis this power, it serves as a way to keep the god of destruction in check just in case that they destroy something that they shouldn't have. I actually really like this since it adds more lore and depth to Beerus and Whis' relationship. Similar to how I felt about Beerus' key nullification in the previous arc, I also felt that the temporal do-over was cheap. Just like the Senzu Beans and the Dragon Balls, the temporal do-over acts as yet another get-out-of-jail-free card for the characters to use. Now granted, Whis admits that it takes a lot of time to use his do-over again, but that time frame is never specified, so the writers can just make up any arbitrary time they want to depending on how it fits the story. What didn't make any sense was how Vegeta was able to obtain Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Goku explains that unlike him, Vegeta never did the Super Saiyan God ritual, yet he was still able to obtain Divine Ki. How was that even possible? If there was no ritual, then Vegeta shouldn't be able to have Divine Ki. Oh, but it's explained that he obtained it from his training with Whis. Again, what was so special about the training? Like, what was done specifically to obtain Divine Ki? The only notable things Whis teaches them is to have their bodies move on their own, which is Ultra Instinct, and to not let their heightened energy leak out. What's so special about that? Before, they had to do a pretty complex ritual between 6 good Saiyans. Nope, just control your energy. That's all it takes to obtain Divine Ki, I guess. It's so incredibly stupid. I also felt very mixed with how Goku and Vegeta doubled down on fighting separately rather than working together. I think their decision is completely driven by their bullshit Saiyan pride. And by not working together, they are putting everyone else at risk of threats like Frieza. It's an idiotic decision. But because of the scene, we get to see a relaxed Goku and Vegeta interact with each other. And I actually really like this. It's been years since Vegeta moved past his old ways, and it's cool seeing him interact with Goku like friends would. I mean, for Kami's sake, Goku and Vegeta are literally in their 40s. With all that being said, there is something that I actually really hate about this episode. The defeat of Frieza was so dumb, anticlimactic, and unsatisfying. Goku getting a second chance to fix things, and him charging in the fight and stealing the kill from Vegeta was a writing decision that completely baffles me. Seeing Vegeta fight Frieza matters so much more to the story than Goku. I know Dragon Ball likes to paint Frieza as this arch-enemy to Goku, but if you really think about it, is he really? I mean, going back to the Frieza arc, Goku goes into that fight having no connection to Frieza whatsoever. Yes, Frieza is the one who enslaved the Saiyans, and killed the majority of the Saiyan population by destroying their planet. The thing is, Goku doesn't really care about all that, since he was raised and chooses to identify himself more as an Earthling rather than a Saiyan. It only gets personal when Frieza kills Krillin and Goku snaps becoming a Super Saiyan. It makes a lot more sense for a guy like Vegeta to be the one to fight and defeat Frieza. Vegeta was the Prince of the Saiyans, and would have been king if not for Frieza destroying his homeland. On top of that, Frieza even had Vegeta working under him. So Vegeta was just forced into working for the guy who denied him his birthright and destroyed his entire race of people. From a story perspective, it makes perfect sense for Vegeta to defeat Frieza. But no, this is Dragon Ball Super, and Dragon Ball Super doesn't do things that make sense. You've heard me say this a million times already. And they instead opt to have Goku get the win because he's the main character, blah blah blah, it's stupid fucking writing. This was a very mixed ending for me. I enjoyed quite a bit of things, but what really hurts this episode for me was the defeat of Frieza. Just like this entire story arc, it's really bad. The ending of the arc just wasn't impactful or memorable at all, so my scoring for episode 27 is a 3 out of 5. Well, with that, the end of episode 27 marks the conclusion of the Resurrection F arc of Dragon Ball Super. Wow, I had so much to say this time around. Even though this arc is much shorter than the last, I felt as if my script was just as long and my voice hurts twice as much. And I still have lots to say. So, let's get into my final thoughts so I can give this arc the final scoring. When I first watched Resurrection F, I tried my best to go into the arc with an open mind. When this arc was initially being broadcast, I ended up completely quitting Dragon Ball Super. I didn't like the Battle of Gods arc, and I absolutely hated the anime's version of Resurrection F. I found it to be so boring that it wasn't worth my time, especially since I had already seen the movie. So rewatching it now with an open mind made me realize that I was exactly right. Yep, this arc sucks! Outside of the actual story, let me go into the lowest hanging fruit, the art and animation. In this arc specifically, Dragon Ball Super's art and animation is just god-awful. Characters are drawn incredibly sloppy. In most shots, they just look off, but there are a few shots where they look laughably bad. I can't get invested in most of the action because of how weird and stiff it looks. Also, I didn't want to talk about this too much because literally almost every episode looks bad. And to constantly bring this topic up for 9 episodes would give us both a headache. Well, with that out of the way, let's talk about the story. So, just like in the previous arc, this story is based on a movie. A big part of my last review was comparing the anime version to the original version. I didn't focus on the comparisons as much in this review because there just weren't as many. I was honestly shocked to see just how similar the movie version and the series actually are. Even the dialogue is exactly the same as it was in the movie. The changes that were made were so minor they don't alter the story. Even so, there were changes that I felt improved and worsened the story. The biggest change for me was the decision to keep Togama alive. This is probably the best change made to Resurrection F. And to my surprise, they actually did an amazing job developing Togama. But in classic Dragon Ball Super fashion, even when they have something genuinely good, they still somehow find a way to fuck it up. Ginyu switching bodies with Togama. I absolutely hate this. It's so frustrating because Super actually made an improvement, and they wasted it all to bring back Captain Ginyu. RIP Togama, he was built up only to be torn down. Another big change the anime made was to have Goku return to his normal state before getting shot. It makes sense why the writers decided to change that scene since it was very controversial amongst fans. But the problem isn't just Goku getting shot while in his god form. The problem is that Goku got incapacitated by a common ray gun to begin with. The scene doesn't make any sense. Regardless of what form Goku was in, it wouldn't have mattered because the scene still plays out the same. The foundation of the scene itself sucks. And that's Resurrection F's biggest problem. The foundation for a good story just isn't there. Super attempts at improving on the story by adding things that weren't in the movie. Super tries giving Krillin more emotional depth by making him scared of Frieza, but he gets over that really quick. Super tries to include Majin Buu and Gotenks since they don't appear in the movie version. But in Super, they don't do anything either. Super tries to have an emotional moment with Piccolo sacrificing himself to protect Gohan, which would be a big deal, but by the end of the arc, he's perfectly fine because of the Dragon Balls. It tried to do all these things, but failed at almost everything. Again, Togama was the only change I really liked, but it's like, really? That's it? Just Togama? That's the only thing Super got right, and even then they screwed that up. The worst part of Resurrection F is that there's barely anything in this arc that has a lasting impact on the series. The only 2 things in this arc that have a lasting impact was Golden Frieza and the Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Golden Frieza is an amazing transformation that establishes Frieza as a threat once again, and implies that there's still much more room for him to grow and develop his power. This concept will get used later on when Frieza gets brought back, again, in order to fight in the Tournament of Power arc. While I'm not a big fan of recycling Frieza over and over again, I do like how Super is taking advantage of things introduced in the previous story arcs. So Frieza's resurrection in the golden form don't feel like a complete waste. Unfortunately, I don't feel as positively towards Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Going forward, Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan would be the main transformation of the series. Dragon Ball Super wanted this form to be revealed as a surprise, but by doing so, they made this transformation appear out of nowhere with nothing special about it. This new form isn't directly tied with the Battle of Frieza. Goku and Vegeta had already discovered this new power way before Frieza invaded Earth, and would have developed this new power regardless if Frieza got resurrected or not. Which is a shame because this new transformation isn't tied with any sort of special event either. Goku's Super Saiyan was triggered by the death of his best friend. Trunks found his best friend and mentor dead. Goku and Vegeta discovered Super Saiyan got Super Saiyan through sparring with each other and keeping their heightened ki under control. Yeah, there's literally nothing special about this transformation. No emotional trigger, no divine ritual, nothing. So then that makes me question, why does Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan need to exist? In the previous arc, the red-haired Super Saiyan God was meant to have a great amount of importance. The transformation entices Beerus to travel to Earth and to seek out a rival worthy of challenging him. Super Saiyan God is the catalyst that triggers this story to happen, leading Dragon Ball into its new era, that being Dragon Ball Super. In Battle of Gods, Goku only gets to utilize Super Saiyan God for a limited amount of time before its power fades. However, it was also established that, despite no longer having divine energy, the strength of the transformation is still within Goku. There's a lot of potential development for Super Saiyan God. Its limited amount of screen time and background information leaves behind a feeling of intrigue. But instead of expanding on Super Saiyan God, the writers decide to throw that form into the trash and instead create an entirely new transformation. I have no idea what Toriyama or Toei were thinking when creating this new transformation. Honestly, Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan should have never existed at all. There already is a brand new transformation that has plenty of room to grow. There is no need for this new form to exist. In fact, this entire arc should have never existed in the first place. I mean really, think about it. Other than Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan and Golden Frieza, what does this story arc really have to offer? At the very least, I should be entertained, but after watching this story arc twice, all it did was make me quit watching the first time and piss me off the second time. Now, I understand why they decided to do this. Resurrection F wasn't made to be like Battle of Gods. Battle of Gods was meant to be a continuation of the Dragon Ball story. It expands on the world in a meaningful way, allowing for more Dragon Ball content to be made afterwards. Resurrection F was made to be like other Dragon Ball movies. They are just entertaining side stories that aren't a part of the main story. But what makes Resurrection F frustrating is that it is a part of the main story. And while Resurrection F does act as a continuation for Battle of Gods, it doesn't really expand on anything, and decides to revive a previous villain only to kill him off again. So we have a story arc that doesn't have a lasting impact, is poorly written, is incredibly frustrating, and is very boring. Yeah, this story shouldn't have ever been made, and is easily the worst story arc in Dragon Ball. With that, the final score in this arc is a 21 out of 45, or a 46%. To the surprise of literally no one, Dragon Ball Super's Resurrection F arc gets an incredibly low score from me, which is disappointing to say. I know I ran a lot about Dragon Ball, but don't be mistaken, my complaints come from a deep passion for the series. I like Dragon Ball, and I don't want Super to fail, but at the same time, I'm not just gonna give a shitty series a pass just because I personally like it. Well, Resurrection F, you've officially dethroned the Buu arc and have become the worst arc in Dragon Ball. All of this proves to me that once again, there is nothing super about Dragon Ball Super. Well, with that, the Resurrection F arc of Dragon Ball Super is over. I hope you enjoyed my review. Even though I hated this arc, sitting down and writing a review was actually pretty fun, and I'm excited to make more Super reviews. So you can expect a review of the Universe 7 vs Universe 6 arc sometime in the future. I'm pretty slow when it comes to making videos. For the most part, I'm out doing other things, and I usually only do this in my free time. So with that being said, if you want to hear more rants and reviews, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you haven't. I really do appreciate all the support. Until next time!